Oh, got it. Thanks, Andrew.
David's Dwight. I don't know.
What is, what's the path? Jamie?
Okay, we're going to get this Finance Committee meeting called to order. For the Finance Committee meeting for February 1st, would you please do a roll call?
Councilman Holtz,
Here.
Councilman Hanky, President Dawson.
Present. Okay, would you read proposed ordinance 24-0-03 by title, please?
Proposed ordinance 23-0-03-R, an ordinance appropriating $9,400,000 from the American Rescue Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund for the LaSalle, McKinley, and Benham Area Water and Sewer Project.
Corey?
Hi, council members. Here to talk about the Benham project today. It is so if my PowerPoint's going to work, okay. So the project need, the Benham area around the Tolson Center floods during intense rainfall events. The area was originally developed over a marsh and is still a low area of the city with no outlet to the rivers. We also have critical water main crossings under the railroad that will be relocated, and infrastructure around the Benham Water Tower will be replaced and upgraded. So this map that I'm showing on the PowerPoint, this is a photo of the original survey of this area of Elkhart County from 1830, and you can kind of see the area that says marsh on the lower right part of the screen. That was the original area where the Tolson Center and the surrounding neighborhood is. It's also an area of really bad soil. If you ever go to, it's called Merle. It's just this horrible soil for doing anything with. So this project consists of construction of 7,845 feet of sanitary sewer and storm sewer main, and a lift station that will convey only storm water directly to the St. Joseph River. It is one of 3 different projects that will all tie together to basically let this neighborhood directly flow rainwater to the St. Joseph River. And I told you that without looking at it. Also on this slide, you can see this area is picture. Oh, sorry.
Go back to that slide. Let the record show that David Hinkey's here. Yeah, start there so he can get it from the beginning.
Okay. Sure.
Kind of
no
what we're
problem.
doing. It's kind of what we're doing.
Wasn't far into it. So the project need here, the Benham area around the Tolson Center floods during intense rainfall events today. It has no outlet to the river. That area was originally developed over a marsh, and it also has critical water main infrastructure both underneath the railroad and then around the Benham Tower that we're going to replace and upgrade. This map that is up on the screen is an 1830 survey of this area of the city, and it shows the area on the lower right part of the map that is marsh. That is the area of the Benham project. That is the area that floods. That is still a low area, and it is the area that Tolson is around. So the project will consist of construction of about 7,845 feet of sanitary and storm sewer main and a lift station that will convey separated stormwater only directly to the St. Joseph River. It is one of 3 different projects that are all kind of converging in the same area and will all tie together to outlet this area directly to the river as well as some other long-term control plan areas. This picture shows you flooding at the Benham and Chapman intersection, which is right near the Tolson Center.
What year was that?
I don't have a year on the picture, I'm sorry. It will also consist of constructing 5,006 feet of water main and relocate. So on this map, you can see the 18-inch water main, the blue line that crosses the railroad. That used to be where Third Street was, and so we had access to that water main. We no longer have access to that water main. Along in the 50s, Third Street and Second Street were relocated for the Benham Underpass, and so we have lost access to be able to maintain that critical piece of infrastructure. So the new water main will follow the roadway, which is the underpass, and provide better connectivity to the critical Benham Water Tower. The project will also be used for the future abandonment of obsolete, unused infrastructure along what used to be St. Joseph Street, which is the area behind Martin Luther King. It's to the north. There used to be a street there with houses a long time ago, and it's no longer there, but all the infrastructure's underground still. It will provide a neighborhood connectivity. It's really a gateway project between downtown and the Benham neighborhood. The project will construct a new multi-use path connecting the Benham neighborhood to downtown. It will include modifications to the walkway beneath the current underpass, more lighting, and make it more pedestrian appealing. It's an integral part of the vision for the Benham neighborhood plan. It also provides that as a catalyst for downtown's future. The project will reroute the underground infrastructure that currently exists beneath 2nd Street, opening up that land, which is currently a parking lot, for potential redevelopment in the future. It also, what we call it collapsing the Y. Right now, when you take Benham at the underpass, it splits into 2nd and 3rd Street. We're consolidating 2nd Street to 3rd Street, which will prep the area for future two-way street conversion. The funding for this project is proposed to use $9.4 million in ARP funds for water and sewer infrastructure, and then $5.1 million of funds that are not from the general fund. The controller could answer where those funds are coming from. In total, the project will cost $14.5 million. That I would like to open up to any questions, or the mayor would like to. You want to speak first? Okay.
Yeah, let me, good evening, Finance Committee. First of all, I want to make sure that we have an idea of the whys. There are multiple different city strategies that we've taken over the last 5-6 years in order to take a look at not just our downtown, but our neighborhoods, in order to determine what is the best way for us to get beyond some of the things that have happened in the past around infrastructure that said, no, we couldn't afford it then, and why not? And so with that said, we wanted to stage our new developments in a different way and actually make sure that we were looking at these plans, which have come from stakeholders, and Mike will speak to some of those in specificity, but we were challenged by this aging infrastructure and the consequences of not being able to get it done. And part of that, and matter of fact, this first piece is Benham Avenue. But it's a part of a larger relationship to what Elkhart's tomorrow should look like. And so with that said, these strategies that we're talking about is actually beginning to take what Elkhart should look like tomorrow and start it today. The model that we will be putting in front of you very soon will bring all of these pieces together, not just the infrastructure pieces, but quality of place, relationships, as well as some of the other pieces that we've looked at around public safety. And we think that we have an opportunity right now to begin to bring these pieces together as we build out the CSO, as we take a look at our long-term control plan underneath, and make sure that we are bringing this modicum of relationship to the citizens of Elkhart. And that's important for us as we move into these future development opportunities that are going to link to them. And that's important that we have this relationship with the future and the outputs that this is going to render to us. So I'm going to turn this over to Mike for just a second for you to be able to see how this strategy comes together in a development services or an economic development way.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike Huber, Director of Development Services, City of Elkhart. As the mayor noted, the community has undertaken multiple community planning initiatives over the last 5 or 6 years. While these planning initiatives were initiated by different administrations, they all did kind of follow a similar structure that included extensive community input and vetting of the strategies and the tactics that are included in the plan to create outcomes related to industry diversification, enhancing quality of life, and attracting talent, private investment, and population growth. Specifically, the River District Plan, the 2040 Diversification Plan, the Thrive 2040, the Downtown Master Plan, and the forthcoming Benham Plan are all representative of this unique collaborative style where the community, in fact, was part of the ownership and funding as well as the engagement in the development of these planning processes. What this creates for us is a level of assurance that the objectives and the actions that are included in these plans reflect the community's vision for the future, and it holds us accountable. There's a level of accountability on the city when the community creates the plan and the vision and outlines the tactics. The city has to deliver on making sure we're aligning our investments and making sure we achieve those implementation outcomes.
Where are you going? I'm sorry. David, would you come down here, please?
So,
I got water, but it works better for the camera when you start asking questions. They don't have to go back and forth. All right.
So the core focuses of many of the initiatives, really all of the initiatives in these plans, relate to building the kind of city that can compete and win the battle for talent to support a more diverse economic base, as well as providing an enhanced quality of life, not just to attract new residents, but also to enhance the quality of life for the residents who are already invested in the city. These primary outcomes reflected in these planning processes relate directly to the city's ability to attract investment, growth, and prosperity based on the metrics we're establishing related to increases in housing, increases in jobs, increases in private investment, property tax assessments, income tax revenues, and population growth. These are the outcomes that we're measuring these initiatives and these investments on. A common thread across all of these processes is a recognition of the power of cornerstone resident amenity projects supported by intentional public investments that act as a catalyst to spur private investment around those projects. Examples of this can be seen with the Lerner, the Wellfield Botanic Gardens, and the Beacon Health and Aquatic Center and their impacts on attracting business investment and new residents to downtown and the River District. The Tolson Center represents the city's newest cornerstone project, and this Benham project we're discussing tonight is one of the supportive public investments that's required to set the table for the model to work in this neighborhood. A core component of the Benham neighborhood planning process identified the original establishment of the Benham Underpass Y and the city's urban renewal efforts and the negative impacts related to how they split that neighborhood and led to the demolition of the original neighborhood historic fabric. We saw it in the video, the village neighborhood. That's what we're trying to fix through the Benham neighborhood plan. The utility improvements that are included in this project will help us set the table for the infill housing development strategies that the Benham neighborhood plan is identifying and allows for the consolidation of the Y to create the connectivity that Tori referenced that really is important to making sure this neighborhood feels attached and connected to downtown. Additionally, as Tori noted, the Downtown Master Plan has identified the impacts resulting from the past decision to make 2nd and 3rd streets one-way streets. As a result of this decision, these streets have become thoroughfares taking traffic through downtown rather than to downtown. This has also contributed to a lack of safety for pedestrians in the city, in the downtown. These factors have contributed to the decline and lack of new investment in these corridors. One of the central tenets of this new downtown plan is to restore all the one-way streets back to two-way streets and to provide for traffic calming and parking improvements to attract new investment back to these corridors. The realignment of the Y to meet 3rd Street is a component that supports these objectives. This is the first of a lot of projects you hear. We're intentional, we're looking at the plans the community brought to us, and we're aligning these investments with these plans. This is just one example and the first example of that. Thanks for consideration and your support.
Thank you, Mr. Huber. Any questions of Tory with regards to the project? Thank you.
Tori, I wanted to, and it could go to you or Mike, it doesn't really matter, but so we talked about in the original request of funding, and it referenced lead pipe, it referenced flooding, and so I wanted to know the frequency of flooding, what level of flooding in the last 4 years.
So our models and calculations suggest that the area, that neighborhood, which is currently on a combined sewer system, floods about every 2.5 to 5 year, and every 2.5 to 5 year rain event. So it's not that it floods every 2.5 to 5 years. It's that every year there's a 2.5 to 5% chance that that area will flood. And the flooding, is not a permanent feature. It floods, backs up from the combined sewer onto the roadways because there is no outlet to the river in that area. And so what we have is combined sewage standing on the road for the period of a half hour to 3 hours while the system drains, and that combined sewage can re-enter the combined sewer system. What we've done here is the system we've designed here is designed for a 10-year rain event. So every year there's a 10% chance that you will have a greater, that you'll have flooding in that area, but the flooding that would, temporary flooding that would occur in a 10-year event would be stormwater only. There would be no contamination from the sanitary system, and that flooding will be more temporary because the pump station will be working to drain the roadway from the stormwater. So to give you an idea of the amount of volume we're talking about, so for every inch of rain, this project will eliminate 550,000 gallons of stormwater from going into the combined sewer system.
So, but to put it in my perspective, you're over my head on most of that, but I would ask the 2.5 to 5 year plan, what percentage of the city meets or exceeds that same rating?
I would say, I don't have a direct answer for you, Councilman Henke, but anecdotally, I would say that this is the worst neighborhood that we have where the combined sewage comes out onto the surface. Most of all of the rest of the city either was developed after we had separated the sewer systems, or they are developed in an area that already has direct access to the river for the combined sewer system. So we're talking about CSOs.
So what then percentage of lead pipe? Like what is the linear foot of lead pipe in that particular area to be affected?
So we don't measure lead pipe by linear foot. We measure it by number of connections. So, you could be one home and your home may be a 200-foot lead pipe. We don't care about the distance. The EPA doesn't care about the distance. All the EPA cares about is one home. So I don't have that figure with me. I can get that number to you, though, certainly by the council meeting.
Well, it would be, so, so the community would understand better how this became the priority spot comparison to others. We do have others.
It's not that it's a priority. Every area that has lead is a priority. It's just that this area we're able to hit with this project at this time.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I actually had a question. Sorry, Mr. Henke. Your question about lead pipes reminded me of a time recently on the Redevelopment Commission. Private lines are mentioned too, so it's lead pipes and private lines. I don't know, could you explain a little about what private lines mean and some guess or estimation how many private lines are involved?
Sure. So we have, I think there's 3. It's kind of complicated. So what we have in this area is we have a number of what we would call private lines, but basically it's one 2-inch diameter water line that then splits off and connects like 3 or 4 different homes. And so it's, to us, it's one private line, but to each of those 4 residents, it's their line, right? So this project will eliminate a number of those and allow us to connect them directly to the public main.
Yeah, thank you.
So that was my next question. How much of the lead is going to be reduced? And is it consistent with other neighborhoods as far as what the plan is to eliminate, remediate lead pipes? So are we then saying that we're going to take the lead pipe away all the way into the house? How is that going to work?
Yes. This is a much larger discussion, but to answer your question, every lead pipe in our water system will be removed from the public main to the meter inside of whatever structure that meter is in. And so that applies across the entire whole network of the city. Now, when we're able to get to each of those lead lines, that I can't answer today, but that is what we are going to be mandated to do by the EPA.
Right. And the reason I ask on this side is because you're reminded of now nearly 3 years of emails in regards to the continuous flooding and backup on the circle. And we don't seem to have an answer for those people whose homes flood inside the home every year.
I don't know what you're referring to in
You've been
this
in those
terms of this.
emails with that, yeah.
I believe you're speaking to Lawndale. That has nothing to do with the combined sewer system. That is all groundwater.
Yeah, but again, it's contamination of those homes, and so I'm just looking at that because those are the calls that I get as well as the one we took care of today, 726 Middlebury Street, third time sewage in the basement. And so I just want to make sure as people call, why is this area getting the priority that I can fully explain those pieces?
I might give you some history. This area has probably flooded since Rod lived there as a kid. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's more than 50 years. It's always flooded. I mean, it's not to the extreme where, well, it would get to the extreme where the cars would die out, but it also got to the extreme where it would back traffic up because you had to go through it so slowly. But, and you said, in my mind, it floods every year. When there's a rain, there's a flood down there, and it's not good, definitely not good for the kids crossing Tosa. But it's something we've had to deal with, and I'm glad you showed that picture of that swamp because that indicates just what type of land we're trying to build on. So I just wanted to give David some historical perspective, but since I've been here, it's flooded, and it seems to me it floods every year. It used to flood into the church right there.
Are we talking on MLK?
No, Chapman and Benham. Chapman and Benham.
Flooding there all the time. We put something there to try to help them with that. So it just to give some history, it's been flooding for a long time.
I just want to respond as well, David. This project is not a priority of other places because of the water line replacement over other places. This is a project priority because of its relationship to all of the plans that we've got and the investments that we're making to order to mitigate, to clear the way for this isn't a one over the other. We're going to get to the other ones too. We're only doing the water mains because we're already there doing those things. So while we're taking that opportunity to do that, the project is a priority because of its relationship to the strategic initiatives and plans that were developed in this area.
Well, if you don't mind staying, because if I could, my next questions were that line. So how much of this came about, and you pretty well answered it, because it coupled with the South Main Development Workforce Housing Project?
As well as the downtown master plan, which is this is a significant contributor to the reversal of the one-way streets to two-way streets to provide for the further development and increased development in the 2nd and 3rd Street corridors as outlined in the downtown master plan as well.
Well,
So it syncs both of those plans together.
Is 2nd or 3rd Street, will they undergo massive, like water sewer replacement underneath those streets?
So
or just
3rd
the
Street will, as part of the city's long-term control plan.
All right. And then the workforce housing in the Tolson neighborhood area, you're saying that this is vital to that?
This is a critical component for the planned infill housing development plan and project and to support development around Tolson, that the Tolson Center, we hope, will act as a catalyst, much like the Lerner and the Beacon Health and Aquatic Center have.
And then if I could go on, this is also CSO related, right?
It will eventually connect into the CSO as well.
So I didn't know if the cost would be reflective to be tied into the rate increases for both sewer and water over the next 3 years.
This is not a CSO long-term control plan project.
It's not going to be coupled with, this doesn't,
This connects into the infrastructure that the long-term control plan projects are laying, but this is not part of the long-term control plan.
this was not a part of that larger
Correct.
picture, okay. And then finally, at some point, I would like to see the overlay, because this is, this is now 14, 16, 30, $36 million in the general area, regardless, and that would include Tolson and road improvements and those things, and then this $14 million. At some point, we should have an overlay that talks about the expectation of AV of future use, that it's not all 401c3 nonprofit, non-tax producing, that, this is really good use of the money, because that would then assist us in knowing what funding to use. I know you understand that.
Yep. No. We're calculating, we're doing calculations based on, we're waiting to kind of get some of the results from the final results of the Benham Neighborhood Plan to fully understand the strategies related to the infill housing, but we're doing projections and calculations on the vacant lots and what we anticipate and some of the other multifamily opportunities with the developers that we're negotiating with right now in that area. So we will have that information.
And then finally, and I can be done,
You keep saying that.
and then finally, I know, and it's a lot of Jamie and Rod, but we do have some alternate funds, and I'm very protective of capital outlay purposefully, because of our, presidential election year is always a drop-off and a pickup, and we're not exactly sure where we are for your personal portfolios. They're really pushing to have 20% cash availability because you don't know what's happening here. I do see some funding, and I would also ask, is this particular area in TIF district, a TIF funding area?
So this area is in the TIF district. I believe this is either in the South Consolidated or the downtown. I'm not sure which, but yes, it is in a TIF district.
You think it's which one?
It's either in downtown or it's in South Consolidated. The boundary is right in that area somewhere.
All right. Southwest?
South Consolidated TIF. The
We
consolidated
can look
South
at that.
TIF.
I was just trying to come up with, if there was, again, a way to preserve cash balances as we move forward. It's going to take a lot of cash incentives and plans and networking moving forward, and we clearly don't want to raise new fees or taxes to get that accomplished. So there's a sewer replacement fund with $5.8 million in it, sewer depreciation surplus with $10.7 million. Are any of these, number one, I'm not asking if they're appropriate, I'm asking in all intents and purposes, could they be used? That's would be my, not that we want to reserve, could they have been applied is the question.
No, all those funds are dedicated for the long-term control plan projects.
All right, so they're already in that number. And then Riverboat Fund for Jamie, and then Rainy Day Fund, even though Rainy Day is probably more portable than capital outlay. Easier to use Rainy Day than capital outlay, and you use Rainy Day to actually fund capital outlay in some degree.
So, Jamie RC, City Controller. Rainy Day would be an appropriate use if we felt that was the case. I believe that the use of the capital outlay is the right decision here, which is why we made it, and why the fund was established to fund infrastructure very similar to what we did with the River District.
Mr. Henke.
But that would be an available funding option if
Mr. Henke mentioned couple funds and, basically what was available. In the Elkhart Capital Outlay Fund, am I looking at this correctly? The current balance is about 22 million.
Correct. Yeah, that would have been as of November. We're projecting after this with the known transfers in that we would still be in the 20+ million unencumbered for future projects. And I think be mindful that the appropriation will be ordered such that ARP will be spent first, and in the event that we come in under budget, if we don't have to hit 100% of the appropriations because change orders don't exist, or what other factors that are oftentimes beyond our control, then we won't spend the money. I mean, it'll be ARP first. It will get us over our ARP hurdle of formally obligating it this year to be spent by 2026 and meet the compliance components there.
So regardless of the dollar value, it was really looking at intent of funds. And let me, as someone that really promoted that under then Mayor Tim Neese, we were on the River District and trying to incentivize major investments. And so we did put out $12 million in lower cost, lower interest rate loans, 12 million. But look what we got for that. And that money is to be paid back to the very fund that came from so that we could expend it again. But this has now morphed into road and infrastructure and so on. I think we put about 7 million underground because we had underground utility down East Jackson. But, the real cause of that is to be able to propel your local economy when the larger economy has failed. And that's why that number needs to continue to grow, because that day is coming. And not everyone is going to be able, like in the River District, to put up $40 million. Great Lakes Capital and, the investment group that's in front of the Aquatic Center, let alone the Aquatic Center as well, had significant personal donations. $30 million was the big one. We don't have all of that to do again, so it is going to take some of these leftover dollars. Now, the reason I asked the left-sided questions here is to say, if we expect real economic return, capital outlay would be an appropriate thing, because you expect dollars, which means they would have to be tax paying entities to the greater degree. If they're not tax, you'd like to leave that money for people that actually will pay our future revenues. And that's kind of why I phrased the questions in the way.
And David, that's your opinion. That's not the administration's opinion. That's not what they chose to do.
Well, so I would ask people to go back and read the notes of when we established that account.
I know what you're saying, but that's not what they chose to do. And that was a discussion maybe we should have had earlier, but right now we need to know whether you want to approve this appropriation.
Well, in all fairness, I did ask for the cash balances for that purpose.
All right. All right. Could I get a motion on the proposed ordinance 24-0-03R?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second to send this on to the council with a due pass recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, Angie, would you read proposed ordinance 24-0-04R by title, please?
Proposed ordinance 24-0-04-R, an ordinance appropriating $5,100,000 from the Elkhart Capital Outlay Fund for the LaSalle, McKinley, and Benham Area Water and Sewer Project.
Any discussion? Same project. Mr. Hinkie?
Same project. Again, you have plenty of money in rainy day as well as one of those options if we actually believe in the philosophy of incentivizing new investment. If the administration chooses not to protect that fund, it is rainy day that actually flows into capital investment. I just prefer rainy day, but personal opinion.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I entertain a motion on proposed ordinance 24.
Motion to do pass?
Got a motion from Mr. Hinkie for a do pass, and a second for Mr. Holtz. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Gentlemen, we are adjourned.